Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. This week we are coming back to the Jatakas. I think it's week number 4. Yes. For this week, I wanted to address a theme that has within it the paramis and the perfections that the Buddha had to accumulate. The Buddha is known to, in order for a Buddha to become a Buddha, as a bodhisattva, they have to work on 10 different perfections. And wisdom is one of them, of course. Meditation is another. Khanti or patience is another. Renunciation, metta, truthfulness, etc. So in this Jataka, we will encounter the Bodhisattva, meaning the Buddha in his past lives, one of them, where he is again a monkey king. However, the name is Maha kapi Jataka, which is the same name, but the number is different, obviously. This Jataka is 516 versus the first one that we did, which was also about the monkey king. So I'm going to look back and forth to the screen and then to you, a live audience. So I'm going to just jump in to the Jataka itself. One time, the Buddha was with his students, and he had just survived a few incidents of some attempts that were made upon his life, meaning assassination attempts done by none other than his own brother-in-law or cousin, Devadatta, whom I have mentioned before in passing. So just to give a brief background as to what those events were, one of them involved, I think the elephant's name was Nalagiri, the king Ajatasattu that I mentioned last time, had given Devadatta basically free access, carte blanche, to do whatever he wanted in the kingdom. So he had somehow persuaded the guards to get the royal elephant drunk. So they mixed different types of alcohol, fermented drinks, into the bucket of the Nalagiri. I think that was his name, if I'm not mistaken. If my memory serves me right. So while the elephant was drinking its water, it ended up drinking alcohol. So now the alcohol was very disoriented. And what they did was basically they poked at the elephant with spears and things to really agitate him. Why? They opened the gates of the palace doors towards this path, this road that the Buddha was known to take on his return from the alms round. So he knew that the Buddha was going to walk up that road. And Nalagiri went storming down that path, that narrow road. Now, Venerable Ananda, Lord Buddha's attendant, was with him, with Lord Buddha. Devadatta was there at the palace making sure that he wanted to see the death of the Buddha. He wanted to make sure that crime is, done well, completed as he wanted by the death of the Buddha. Venerable Ananda jumped in front of Lord Buddha to try to block somehow. There's a raging elephant. They're huge, coming at you. And the Buddha just moved Ananda aside and said, Ananda, step aside. I have this. I got this, as they say. And within the canon, we see how the Buddha showers Nalagiri, the royal tusker elephant who's inebriated, drunk, basically, doesn't know what he's doing, where he's going. He's just mad. He's not aware what's happening to him, but he's just an animal based, on animal instincts. He's just doing whatever his disorientation would lead him to do, in addition to all them poking in him and, etc. And Lord Buddha showers the elephant with metta. Such powerful waves of metta he generates towards the elephant that suddenly the elephant stops. And then when we see what happens next, we see the elephant laying down, resting with his trunk on Lord Buddha's lap. And Lord Buddha is beautiful. It's such a beautiful image, caressing the trunk of the elephant. So much love. Nothing happened to the Buddha. So that was attempt number one. The other attempt was when Devadatta got hold of the best archers, assassins basically, that King Ajatasattu had. And he saw them separately, he met them separately. But there was a secret plan. The plan was, without this archer, this assassin knowing about another possible assassin, the other assassin was hiding behind the curtain based on the advice or counsel or instructions of Devadatta. So Devadatta was the person who was calling them in. Devadatta was the one who was giving them the assignment. In mafia, they would call it, I guess, putting a contract on the Buddha, a hit. So he met this one archer and he said, this is where the Buddha will be. I need you to be at this point. Hold your position. Kill him at this point. And he said, okay. So he knew that. As he left, as one of the assassins left, the other assassin came in. He called him over and he said, did you hear him? Yes, yes. Okay, he will be here. I need you to take a position over here to shoot him, to kill this archer, to kill this assassin. And he says, yes. This one didn't know about this archer hitting or shooting a bow at the Buddha. So his goal, his target was simply this assassin. So that was his hit, his target. Lo and behold, this one didn't know that there was another archer waiting over there. So he calls them over. So this number, I think it goes up to 16 different assassins that Devadatta hires on the payroll of Ajatasattu, King Ajatasattu, who doesn't know what's going on. So you have 16 different hitmen waiting on the path. Now, what they didn't know was that Lord Buddha knew what was happening. So he avoided that road to, which basically meant that he foiled the attempt, was completely, was in vain now, because Lord Buddha took a different path and came from behind. And this archer met the Buddha. And Lord Buddha gave him a talk on the Dhamma, at the end of which the potential assassin ended up being a disciple of the Buddha. In fact, to the point where he attained Nibbana of the first level. So he attained stream winning. So he entered the stream, the first stage of the four awakened ones, first level, a noble disciple. Imagine what kind of wonderful qualities and merits one must have had, and intentions above all, to want to meet the Buddha. We have to have had the intention to be reborn at a time where the sasana is still alive, which is the case now. So the sasana, the Buddha's dispensation, is still alive now. So all of us, especially those of us who are listening to the Dhamma, reading the Dhamma, interested in the teachings of Lord Buddha, meant the very fact that we're alive now, and especially listening to it, interested in the Dhamma, means that we have made the intentions to come across the Dhamma as human beings. So there's no gambling here. It's just work that we have done, the fruits of which we are reaping now in the form of a human body, in the presence of the sasana that is still alive. So this went on, by the way, with every single one of those assassins. And then the Buddha went, and this other person was waiting for this assassin to come. But instead of that, the Buddha showed up. And the Buddha, they couldn't shoot at him because he wasn't their target anymore. They were supposed to kill each other, the other archers. So anyhow, the Buddha met with every single one of those 16, and every single one of them heard the Dhamma, and every single one of them attained to Sotapatti, stream winning. Now, when this took place, Devadatta was the raging mad one, because he was seeing every single plan of his come to ruin, being foiled, not working. So he was at the end of his rope, as they say, and he decided to go ahead up the hill in Gija Peaks, it's called, modern day. It's still around. It's in the city of Rajgir. You go up the hill, it's beautiful cliff. And you go up, and there's a path that takes you from behind all the way up to the top of the cliff, where it's called the Vulture's Peak. But as the path goes up, there's narrow areas, curves. And there's a place where Devadatta was waiting above on a higher cliff top with a boulder. And he threw this boulder, he rolled this boulder himself. He rolled it down the cliff, hoping that it would go and hit Lord Buddha, because it is still a narrow path to this day. So it didn't work. However, there was a piece of rock that, there was a splinter. So it ricocheted and it hit a rock, and that rock came in and it cut a large area of the Lord Buddha's foot. I think I mentioned this last time in reference to Jivaka, having helped. Jivaka was the physician who came and helped afterwards. So anyhow, he failed in that attempt as well. So as Lord Buddha had encountered all these experiences, had these events take place, the disciples, the monks, were shocked, of course. And because this was one of them, in a sense. He was still a bhikkhu, albeit a bhikkhu that had gone astray. So Lord Buddha gives them this Jataka story. He says, this is not the first time that Devadatta has tried to kill me. And this is where we get this Jataka. So I hope these setting of the scene is helping you with the Jataka story to place it in the right, position as far as its connection to the past and significance, of course. So there was a man, in King Brahmadatta's time. King Brahmadatta keeps coming up in ancient times. And he was the king of modern day Varanasi, or it's called Kasi in the suttas. Kasi. It was known for its special silk. The best silk was done in Kasi. So many references you see in the suttas for this, made by the Buddha. So at the time of King Brahmadatta, there was a farmer who was a Brahmin by profession. So one day he lets his oxen, the plowing, they're not going to be used at that time. So he allows them to come off the yoke. And so they're freely roaming about in the field. And so they're eating, grazing. And he goes and does his thing, forgetting about these oxen that he has. And then he realizes, oh, I have to go get my oxen because it's been several hours. It's the end of the day. Excuse me, at the end of the day. So he goes and he can't find them. So he follows their footsteps and finally he ends up in the thick darkness of the forest going in the direction of the Himalayas. He can't find them. So this goes on for 7 days. He's looking because oxen or cows even are major, commodities for them. They're livestock. They can make or break a person as far as their wealth is concerned, survival is concerned. So this was his mode of survival, which were not there anymore. So he has to go get them rather. It reaches a point where he realizes that there's no way. Now I have to get out of this forest. I can't, And he is fasting. He's without food. He doesn't have food. He hasn't eaten anything for 7 days, so he's getting desperate. So and then he looks around looking for anything edible, and he sees a tree that has some fruits. Edible fruits. He recognizes. I forgot the name of it. Anyhow, maybe it'll come. So he climbs that tree. In his eagerness to find food and eat it, he doesn't, place the right, he's not attentive enough to look at what branches could hold his weight or not. So he steps on a branch on the tree, thinking that it could support him, but miscalculates. And as he's trying to grab the fruit, he breaks the branch and he ends up falling. Now, that part of the tree was extended towards a gorge, deep gorge. That was about probably at least 50 to 100 meters down. It's almost like an abyss and nothing for him to grab hold of to climb back up. So he falls there. He ends up landing and hurting himself, and he stays there for about 10 days. And he comes to his, he's awake and he's not sure what's happened. And then he realizes he's injured and he's hungry. And above all, he's trapped. He can't get out. So he starts crying, weeping, lamenting his status as he's doomed now. He can't go back to his family. He's ruined. He's going to die. It's at this point where the monkey shows up. The monkey comes, he hears this unusual sound that doesn't belong in the forest. He recognizes this is a human's voice. And as usually, monkeys are, he gets curious. Why is this human here, this part of the neck of the woods, as they say? So he goes closer and closer, and lo and behold, he sees a human at the bottom of the cliff in this abyss. And he says, what is it? How did you end up here? And, it's a Jataka. So basically, he says to the man, don't worry, don't cry. I'm going to come and get you. But he says, I have to make sure that I'm able to collect you. I'm able to carry you. So this is a wise monkey, not any monkey, because this is, after all, the bodhisattva as a monkey in his past lives. That's why this is part of the Jataka, right? So what he does is he goes and looks for he gauges the size of the human at the bottom of this abyss, and he says, I'm going to carry him. He's a big monkey, but he's a king monkey. He's, size wise is big. He says, but I want to make sure if I go down and carry him, I'm not going to get stuck with him, not be able to climb up. So let me make sure that I have a chance here. So he grabs hold of a big rock and he carries it over one hand. He uses one hand and he goes down. Whether he gets the rock from the bottom or top, I'm not sure, but anyhow, it doesn't matter. The point is, he starts carrying the rock up. After some distance, he says, yeah, I think I got this. I think I can do this. So he goes back, puts, he actually lays the rock on the surface, and he goes down. He goes down and he says, don't worry, please don't cry. I'm going to save you. And the man, this is unheard of. This is a miracle. This is, wow, he wasn't expecting this. So he says, just hold on tightly on my back, I'm going to take you to safety. And he carries him all the way up, those 50 to 100-meter climb, basically he does. He gets him to the surface. Now he's exhausted. The monkey is exhausted. And he's so exhausted that he says to the man, listen, can I trust you that everything's going? You need to relax, he says, because I brought you to safety. I just need to catch my breath. Can I trust you that I can lay down my head here and just get a short nap, a power nap before, I go on my business? The man says, sure. Thank you so much, but, sure, you can rest. Now the monkey lays his head gently on the man's lap, thinking that this is a good person. I just saved his life. Nothing bad could come out of this. But as he's resting there on the man's lap, whose life he just saved, the man starts looking around and he says, I haven't eaten for at least 2 weeks. Plus, here's a monkey. Defenseless. I don't have to go look for him. I don't have to hunt him. He's here. What if I kill him and eat his flesh? He's defenseless. He's right here. And guess what? He reaches for the rock. He grabs hold of the rock with both hands and lifts it up. Without a moment's hesitation, he slams it against the monkey's skull, his head. Now, imagine you're the monkey and you were sleeping. That doesn't kill the monkey, but the monkey is shaken up, to say the least, and there's a gushing wound now. His head, his skull is severed. There's a crack. There's bleeding going on. That part of his brain is showing. And he's like, what happened? What? And then he sees the man with the rock, all bloodied. He says, how could you do that? And out of his fear and shock, the monkey, startled to say the least, quickly rushes up on top of a tree and looks down to protect himself, whatever's left of him. But he's bleeding profusely. The man says, I'm sorry I had to do it, but I'm hungry. But he says, now my situation isn't even worse. The man continues complaining, lamenting, weeping, worried about himself and not the death blow that he just gave to this being that saved him. He says, you were my only hope that you could take me to the village. Now I don't even know the direction because I'm lost in the forest. I am definitely certain, he says, that I will never come out of this forest. Now the monkey, while his head is bleeding, he says he doesn't even think that much at that point to consider and to be even vengeful, reactionary in his behavior towards this man who tried to kill him. He tried to kill him. It wasn't an accident at all. It was intentional. Nevertheless, all that the monkey lays aside and he says, this man needs to be with his family. He's lost. I understand that. And he says, you know what? I know the way out, but I cannot trust you. Now, he says, I have a solution, however. I will go over the canopy. I will jump from tree to tree, swing from tree to tree, from tree branch to tree branch. What I need you to do is to follow the traces of my blood in the forest. You won't miss me. And I will go slow, but I will get you to the village. And the man says, oh, great, great. So the monkey does what he said. So he goes from tree branch to tree branch, careful to see if the man is on his tail, as they say, is following closely. And he gets close and close to the entrance of the village. And he says to the man, can you find the way? And he says, yes, yes, thank you, thank you. And he says, I have something else for you. And the monkey is barely able to keep his composure because he lost so much blood. And he comes down and he lays down at the feet of this man. And he says, I was thinking, what's the point in going back to the forest and die there? You're hungry and you probably have a family, a wife and children. They need food. I'm going to give my body, my life to you and die here. Take me home, eat me, so you and your family have the sustenance you need. Because you're their father and you've gone for a long time, they probably are hungry. And he dies. The monkey dies. The man is so happy. Goes home, eats the monkey, and brings the big monkey, and everybody's surprised. Oh, we get our dad back. My husband is back. The wife is saying, the children are happy. And he brought food. But not long after, he starts having symptoms of skin, certain type of rash, this and that. What we call leprosy develops, which is a terrible, terrible skin disease, which doesn't stay only with the skin to the point where it penetrates and the body starts crumbling. Fingers, hands, limbs, ears, things start falling. So what they do is usually people shun these individuals out of society to protect humanity and society from the disease because it is infectious. So soon enough, the man is pushed out of the village, of his family, of his village, and he has nowhere else to go but to go to the forest and to parks where no one frequents. And he's a beggar. He has to cover himself, and because it becomes very ugly. The nose falls, this and that. So it's a very, very deplorable thing for people, shocking thing for people to see or be around it, even. So he happens to go one day to a park, to an area, open field. and he lays down to get some sun because the sun's rays help them with the itching, terrible itching. So this is a terrible, terrible disease because the person cannot sleep, cannot. So they are almost like a hungry ghost living in a human body, experiencing that much pain. It was that day where the king, King Brahmadatta of Kasi, was visiting the park. And his soldiers come and say, Lord, don't go there. There's a sick person. And he's curious. He's never seen somebody who's sick like that. So he approaches from afar. He says, wow, look at you. What? Wow. What happened? What terrible deed you must have done to deserve a birth like this? The king says, asks him, thinking that he was born with this. And the man says, no, no, great king, Maharaja. It wasn't that I was born with these symptoms. I was a healthy human being. I'm a Brahmin, he says. Oh, he says, you're a Brahmin. What happened? I was a father of these many kids, and husband to a beautiful wife. We had a family, this and then this happened, and then that happened, and then I ended up in the forest, and I did this to a monkey who tried to save me. This is how I betrayed the one being who gave his life for me. Not only that, but he even gave his body as sustenance to me and my family, which I didn't even think twice. I never had any guilt until I had this. And as he's recounting this, that Brahmin, the earth opens and swallows him. He sinks into the ground. Whether he was like a quicksand or something, it doesn't matter, but the earth swallows him. The heaviness of one's karma is powerful. In this discipline, in this Dhamma and Vinaya, we have events that take place which today's modern human might think, I don't know about that. And that's one of the problems that we have in society, where people don't think about giving enough weight to our actions. Oftentimes in this culture, we think that our actions don't have an effect. If I can hide it, if I can get away with it and no one knows about it, the longer I hide and then I die, I'm good. No one found out about it. That's not how it works. The action itself is carried with us. And because we go from life to life, because we have the desire to re-become, because we have desires, we have cravings, which is a thirst that never ends. It's a constant thirst for more. That's what we call tanha in Buddhism, craving, the longing, thirst. And that ensures that we will get another life. Now, when you do re-become in another birth, whatever form it may be, you can end up being a monkey or a dog or a human or a king or something. But the consequences of the action, the energy left over, will not be forgotten. The Buddha mentioned different types of karma, meaning the vipaka or the fruits of karma. Some happen immediately, just like when you go and touch a hot stove, the result is immediate. Or you stand under the rain, or you jump into the water. That's an action intentionally committed, and now you have a result of that, meaning you get wet or you burn your finger. That's an immediate example, right? There are other types of karma vipaka that happen throughout one's life, in that same life, because of the nature of the karma, and the other conditions that are necessary for it to take place. Then there are karmic fruits that happen in subsequent life. It could be the next life or in a few lifetimes, or over several lifetimes because of the intensity of the action. And there are certain karmic fruits that happen many, many lifetimes later, given the right conditions for them to arise. So depending on, and when he was asked further and further questions about this on different occasions, the Buddha said, only a Buddha knows the fine nuances, how to decipher as to what were the causes and conditions to allow this to happen, in this case for this person. Because it requires the mind of a Buddha to be able to penetrate through the layers of the past to find that set of conditions that have brought that result. And this is a powerful Jataka to allow us to see dedication, what it means like. We live in a world where if somebody steps on our toe, metaphorically or literally, we hold a grudge, or even worse, we try to punish them in some way, whether it is through passive aggressive behavior. Imagine here's a monkey that didn't owe anything to this man. He was curious at first, but then he saw he related with the man in emotionally. He understood. He had compassion for the man. In fact, to the point where he was giving him metta, because it's beyond just compassion. You have to engage when you're carrying somebody over that far of a distance. You have to reinvest yourself in the action and the intention behind it. I remember when I was a teenager, when the powers would go out, when we were living as a family in Lebanon, the powers would go out, the electricity, and what that calculated into was basically there was no water. And we used to live in an apartment complex where we were on the last floor, the fourth floor, and they were, high stories, so several steps. And I had to walk about 1 kilometer each way and carry about, I don't know how many gallons. I think it was 40 gallons on both sides together or each. I don't remember, but I was already big in size, so I would carry it, but I had to make several stops on the way. And I would do that several times a day so that the reservoir that we had over the kitchen area, which was open, which I had to, after I climbed up to the 4th story to our house, our apartment, I had to climb up on the kitchen counter, which was made of rocks, stone. I had to lift it up, carry it over, because I was the big one. I was the one who was entrusted with doing that kind of a activity, and then pour it into this open container made of concrete. So I had to do that several times. Of course, as a teenager, you start asking, why do I have to do this? How come my younger brother is not doing that? How come, why do I have to? So this was not even a human being over me who might complain. It was just water, even though I had to walk each way 1 kilometer at least. I never measured it, by the way. But so our intention has to be constantly fueling the drive to do that thing, whatever it is, especially in the case of metta, which was one of the paramis that Lord Buddha, as Bodhisattva, in this case, Maha kapi, Jataka, he was doing. So he had to work on the paramis, the perfection of loving kindness. Where is that in us? Sometimes we say, I'm going to support this cause. I'm going to do this, or I'm going to improve my health by eating well, correctly, by avoiding junk food, processed foods, or I'm going to start exercising, or I'm going to start meditating, or I'm going to go out walking, or get some sun, which, by the way, we all need to have sun. That's the best immune system development for the body. Natural light. But then after a few days or after a few tries, we just stop. We make excuses. Now, of course, was a lot more serious thing than that. But as far as the willingness to maintain that course, the momentum, because the Buddha says this path is about those of us who are ready to give an extraordinary level of commitment to it. Remember earlier I was saying about how wonderful it is that we are here as human beings now at the time where there is Dhamma still, Dhamma of Lord Buddha, which is so rare because you have so many varieties of teachings in the world. And everyone's promising you something great after your death. The Buddha's Dhamma, the Buddha's teachings are the only ones that tell you about getting the fruits while you are alive, not some other thing. The Buddha never taught that, oh, after you die, that's when the peak experience of whatever he taught is going to happen. There's no such thing. He taught against such ideologies, by the way. Because when that monkey died, he died contented. He didn't die with a grudge. He didn't die with feeling of, oh, you stabbed me in my heart. I trusted you. You betrayed me. He didn't have that. Of course, he knew the man betrayed him. But with his last gesture of giving, he also gave away his hurt. He gave away his sense of being betrayed. Can we do that? Can we do that if somebody doesn't agree with us? Can I tell myself, well, that's them. Maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe what I think is the truth is not, in fact, the truth. But I've been told that. But I feel this way, so I have to have a response to this. Okay. What would you have done if you were the monkey? And you just realized after all that work that you've done carrying this man who was who was certainly going to die. After that, you're resting on his lap and you wake up to you terrible pain of him trying to crush your head under that boulder to kill you. How would you have responded? Really? We shouldn't look at these stories as fairy tale, as, these things never happened. No, they did. They do, in fact. They do. So the question then is, what makes a person do these things? As in, to give. To give. That's a question I've asked myself as a teacher, as a high school teacher, and then as an educator, university, etc., but especially as a bhikkhu. The difficulties I have faced, for example, and my students have seen, they retell me some of the things, some of the details, or that I've forgotten while I was in it. The countless airports that I had to sleep on beds that couldn't fit. There were no beds. There were benches, if I could find them, with all these armrests, and you can't. So the countless places that you go to because there's a possibility that somebody might need to hear what you have to share. Now, I couldn't have a secret agenda as to, okay, I'll give you this, so you'll give me that. Or you're going to be my student forever and ever and ever. Or you need to give me the support I need, or something like that. The Buddha never taught like that. The Buddha would go sometimes hundreds of miles walking to get to a single student he knew that he could be of help. So there's no agenda. The monkey didn't have an agenda. And he was left with nothing. Maybe. But we're talking about him. He's still giving us, the monkey is giving us such wonderful lessons. even though he's been dead and gone for eons. Thanks to the story that was retold by the Buddha about one of his past lives, we are inspired again to give of ourselves, because all we have is this body right now. What is left of it? This hand was a chubby hand, once. But we have to, it's like, getting a lemon and you squeeze it to make sure that the juice comes out. And you have to make sure you squeeze every last drop out of it. Can we live our lives like that? While you're making sure that you're living a good life, but at the same time, you're taking care of yourself. This does not mean that we have to keep self-sacrificing all the time for others blindly. No, there has to be wisdom. Remember, the monkey didn't go back down from the tree with his head split open and say, okay, I trust you. You hold my hand and I will take you. No, he used his wisdom. He said, I'm going to jump over the trees and you follow the blood trail. There's wisdom there. But as I was saying, throughout the pandemic in different parts of the world, ultimately, what are we trying to save? Everybody was panicking. Everybody was afraid to even look at someone else, let alone look with compassion. We became subhuman, It was devastating to see how low humanity stooped in some cases. We were all protecting ourselves. Yeah, I don't want to get sick. I don't want to get sick. One point, I was in Asia at one point, at the tail end of it, and I saw people like, they were really obsessing over this. And I said, are you Buddhists? And they said, yes, of course, Bhante, we are Buddhists. And I said, so you do know a thing or two about anicca, yes? You do know about a thing or two about rebirth, yes? You do know a thing about two about dukkha, anatta. Where is this going to really manifest? That you do know these things, if not right now in these difficult times, in your behavior. That's where the Dhamma reveals itself, not in some book, or not in when everything is safe and everything is, perfect, and you do your bows, you do your donations, everything is, nice and dandy, as they say. That's when you practice Dhamma. No, anyone can do that. It's when you get scratched. It's when someone steps on your toes or says things that you don't agree with, or you're afraid that something could happen to you. I derive a lot of encouragement and trust in possibilities from the example of this monkey who gave his life to save someone else, who with no strings attached. So I was telling these people, you're worried that you're going to die, you're going to get sick. That means you are spitting in the face of the Dhamma that you claim to be part of or come to hear. There's a dichotomy here. There's a hypocrisy. So our behavior has to be the manifestation of what we believe. And if what our behavior is manifesting as something other than what we claim to be, then that is the truth. The behavior itself is the truth. So if it's something unwholesome, akusala, we have to really be quick, thinking on our feet to fix things, meaning to go back to the noble Dhamma and to make that our resource, not the saving of this body, the saving of our ideologies or opinions, protecting of that, or punishing someone that doesn't agree with us. Why? What makes you certain that you are correct? Because you have others who think like you? Anyone can say that. Criminals do that. Those assassins were thinking that they were going to do something good. Devadatta did not work alone. People had to agree to make the elephant drunk. He wasn't doing it alone. The guards were there, soldiers were there. So people knew. So I hope this story helps to refocus, realign your GPS, your sila, GPS, your dana, your generosity, and to really understand that we're not going to take anything with us, especially this body. So while we're alive, we need to do our very best to make the most of this body while living a good life, a safe life, as best as possible. But up to a certain point, because we cannot have control over things. You make sure there's a healthy body, healthy environment, etc., but up to a certain point, because we're all going to die. No surprise there. Lord Buddha says this clearly, right? Jara marana. Jati, birth, is the cause. If you're born, then you're headed towards death from the moment of your birth. No big deal. Nothing surprising there. Nothing we do throughout life is going to change that reality. Okay? But the quality of it, oh, that's completely in our hand. What we can do with it. And we have the best toolkit, which is called the Noble Eightfold Path, to accomplish that with. And to close this, I can just mention how, while talking to the bhikkhus, Lord Buddha turns to them and he says, "Bhikkhus, do you know who that Brahmin was?" And they say, "No, Bhante." And he says, "That Brahmin who became a leper and the earth swallowed, at the end of him recounting this story to the king, was none other than Devadatta." And guess who was the monkey whose head that monk, that man, that Brahmin split open? Who was the monkey? He says, "That was me, Bhikkhus, your teacher, who was the monkey." And I hope this Jataka is inspiring and helpful for your practice and to keep you focused. I will leave you with that, and may you be prosperous, may you be healthy, may you continue living a good life, clean life, smart life, responsible life, happy life, with no regrets. Sukhi Hotu.